All right, thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar co-hosted with BYU Management Society and Skep Foundation. We welcome our guest today, Terrence. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be turning over the remaining time to David Rupa, who is going to commence today's webinar meeting to do a little introduction and take it from there. David Rupa, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Timlin, and thank you for coordinating this. You know, webinars don't work if you don't have the technical people making it all happen. And so we really appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for joining. So probably this is the power of networking. A few months ago, Terrence and I first connected, and there's just immediate chemistry because Terrence is a very talented, motivated man, and he has a love and passion for Africa. And I have a love and passion for Africa. So it's been fun to get together and talk. And, you know, I'm sure as he talks, you'll get great insights into who he is and what he's about. But he's got an incredible background because he was born, if I got it right, in Sierra Leone. Is that okay? Born in Sierra Leone, came to the United States, educated here with a fabulous education, having gone to Harvard. Now, Terrence, I went to Harvard, but my difference was I went there for 1 week for an executive program, right? And so Terrence did it the real way. You know, in addition to that, you know, he's worked for top flight companies such as Google and Meta. Google, by the way, is announcing earnings tonight, and so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure that will be very, very fabulous. But he's involved now with leadership development and also very involved as the executive chairman of the African Academy of AI. And I find this very exciting. And people, please go on mute if you're not speaking. I think that's very exciting because we know AI is going to be such an enabler for Africans who we've not met in person yet, but we will. But this guy is a fabulous guy, and I hope you enjoy him. And he's going to want questions as time goes on. So make notes because there'll be a Q&A opportunity. So Terrence, it's all
Hey,
yours.
David, thank you so much, folks. It's such a pleasure to be with you. So I'm Terrence Taylor. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about my life story. I'm going to frame it as the power of self-belief. And for those who know and love the work of Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, I've framed it also as a hero's journey. So let's get started. The outline really is, I want to tell you about my call to belief, which is starting off as a small boy from Freetown. That's what I used to tell. And then instead of coming to America, going to America, so answering that call for adventure. And then starting to face trials and tribulations, being called an African booty scratcher and a Basta Pekin. So for any Sierra Leonean or Nigerians who believe in quote unquote pidgin English, I'm sure you know what that those last two words mean. We'll talk more about that. And then getting help from unexpected places to break records, be a state champion, outstanding freshman athlete, Brown University, starting to glimpse a little bit of the gift that was ahead. So triple majoring at Brown, working on Wall Street, going to Harvard Business School at the age of 24 and completing it at 26. And then searching and fearing, which Campbell doesn't really talk so much about, but I found that in my journey that as I started working for these big corporates, Citibank, Africa.com, which was a startup, Discovery, a big company in South Africa, Standard Bank in South Africa, Echo Bank, Pan-African Bank, very big in, well, throughout Africa, but especially in West Africa, headquartered in Togo, where I am today. And then I started a startup called Leapfrog Africa. I was searching, but a lot of fear, right? So the power of belief wasn't as strong yet. Then getting an opportunity to go back to the US and work for Google for 5.5 years, and then Meta for 2.5 years, and finally starting to find my feet and find my faith. And then building a faith that's stronger than fear and really embracing the power of belief to launch tailored tax, tailored refunds, the African Academy of AI buying a 49.9% equity stake in that business and becoming the executive chair, starting the African Institute of Future Technologies. So that's what I want to share with you today. And I want, as we go through this, for you to feel comfortable to interrupt me and ask questions. Now, because I'm presenting, I'm looking at the slide, so I'm not able to see you. So if you want to interact with me, feel free to come off mute and just feel free to interrupt me so I know you either want to add something or you have a question. So let's start off with the small boy from Freetown and this culture belief. So I was born in Freetown, Sierra Leone, born in the village of Waterloo, as others would pronounce it, Watalo, as we would pronounce it in Sierra Leone. My mom was 11 months pregnant before I finally was ready to join this world. I was way too comfortable. And I really enjoyed my childhood in Leone, but I basically became a very naughty child who wanted to basically do exactly what he wanted to do, not really listen to my grandmother who was raising me. So my grandfather, hey, because he's going to become wayward. So for those of us who are raised in former British colonies, you know what that word means. And that opportunity to come to belief, because leaving Sierra Leone as a small boy, literally at the age of I think I was still a few months, and then going all the way to the US. So that was the start of my journey. I then answered the call to adventure and belief by going to America. So for those who love movies like I do, one of my favorite movies is Coming to America. Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, cast of characters, really well done. My story was slightly different. So I flew by myself at the age of 9. I saw an airplane for the first time. I basically was treated to watch a film on Pan American Airways. Unfortunately, that airline is no longer here, but I remember very fondly watching a movie on that flight. I remember being served a beverage, and I saw this coffee creamer, which I knew. I saw Coke, which I knew, and I decided as a 9-year-old to mix them up. And I actually thought it tasted quite good. So it was just a very nice adventure. I remember riding a helicopter for the first time when I got to the UK, on Gatwick airports. And I just remember that feeling, my stomach was falling out. I remember seeing the roofs of the buildings. I remember riding an escalator for the first time. And then when I got to the US, the airline crew started a whispering session because my dad wasn't there to pick me up. He had never gotten the telegram from my grandmother to tell him that I was on my way, so he didn't know. So I ended up being taken care of very well by the crew of Pan Am, and they were kind enough to give me Pepperidge Farm goldfish snacks, which I really enjoyed. And then they let me watch TV in their employees' lounge. This was before, lounges for passengers came out. And I just remember watching Tom and Jerry and really just enjoying myself that entire time. At the end of that evening, one of the crew members said, we haven't been able to reach his dad all day, but he did give us this note from his grandmother that has his dad's address. And I know that address very well, 8600 16th Street in Washington, and actually in Silver Spring, Maryland. So let me actually take him. Maybe by the time I get there, his dad will be home. And sure enough, through the grace of God, he took me straight to my dad's address, rang the doorbell, and there was my dad, shocked to see me, but also very happy to see me. I would never forget the hug he gave me, wrapping me up in his arms. And so that was my going to America story. And then I ended up going to Albert Einstein High School, where I'll come back to why this was important later. And then the next part of my journey was actually not starting to face trials and tribulations. So in the hero's journey, once you accept the call to adventure, you actually get tested. So your belief get tested, your resolve get tested, and you face these challenges. So I started facing trials and tribulations. So the first one was really adjusting to growing up in America and going to school in America, because a lot of the American kids had very backwards, regressive, negative images of Africans in general. So they kept asking me, are you an African booty scratcher? And I didn't even understand what that meant, but they'd watched things like Tarzan, where they'd seen the depiction of Africans, and they just had these very negative images. So I remember having to educate a few of them that, first of all, don't even know what that word means, but second of all, there's no such thing as an African booty scratcher. But perhaps the trial and tribulation was with my stepmother, Pauline, who was very much an abusive stepmother, in the sense that she was abusive verbally and even physically. And what I would call more not even she was telling me. To make a long story short, I ended up being in a situation where it became very clear that I needed to find resolve and I needed to grow as an individual, because I was facing these situations and these people who didn't necessarily believe in me. And the first real step towards that strong belief was deciding that I was going to prove Pauline wrong, that I was going to show her that I was no one's bastard, and that I was going to be someone. I was going to be someone very important and someone very big. So this was during my teenage years, right? Okay, so the next thing is then going through Brown University and finding out a few things. So first of all, finding out that I had the talent that I've been building in track in high school, where I set our Albert Einstein high school record for the 800 meters, and also 100 meters, the mile, and getting runner up in the 2 mile were important things. And then last but not least, finding out that at Brown University, through my running, that I became the outstanding freshman athlete, something I didn't really expect. But this is the next phase of the hero's journey. And this was my next phase of believing in from unexpected places. So my track coach, Coach Rothenberg, was one such person. Teammates, and including my best friend, Gerald Taylor, was another. So I just found people who believed in me, and they kept infusing me with this sense of belief in myself. And so at Brown, outside of track, I also triple majored in African American studies and international relations, North-South relations, so the relations between the developed world and the developing world. I also had the privilege of going to work on Wall Street after I graduated from Brown, spent 2 years at Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette as an investment banking analyst. And then I had the privilege of going to Harvard Business School, as I shared already, at 24 and graduated at 26. So I was starting to see that, hey, I actually have a very good life that I'm starting to build for myself. I was starting to see some of the gifts that would later be important. I remember at this stage of my life wanting to do something for the continent of Africa, not knowing exactly what, but knowing that I wanted to do something for the continent of Africa. So after that, I moved forward to work for companies like Citibank, where I had a chance to work for Citibank, Mexico, Russia, and then Philippines, Turkey, and then ending up working in Citibank Indonesia, where I built the risk analysis unit for Citibank Indonesia. Then after Citibank, I got headhunted to join Africa.com as the CFO of the startup that had 10 million to build a portal at the stage we were calling it, and a Pan-African internet service provider. So very fascinating time. I learned a lot. I moved to South Africa for the first time. We began to understand what was possible in the tech space for the continent. That's the South African financial services company, started out in insurance, and they've grown now where they're one of the world's digital banks. If the founder discovered that people were being incentivized to be sick by the way health insurance companies paid them, and he decided he was going to incentivize them to be well. And then I worked at Standard Bank as a director in the learning and development space. That's learning and development space. Got headhunted to join EcoBank to launch the EcoBank Leadership Academy and also to run its group learning and development. And at some stage, I started my first real journey into being an entrepreneur and created Leapfrog Africa. But during this time, I found myself like really searching to figure out like exactly what I wanted to become a full-time entrepreneur, because I had a wife, 2 young kids, and I was feeling like I needed to make $15,000 a month to be able to take care of my family. And if I couldn't see how I was going to make that entrepreneurial discovery was the last. Joined Google as a senior consultant and executive develop Google organizations. So we called it client partnership and organizational development. And after 5.5, and her name is Samantha. So Sam invited me to interview for a role in her organization, reporting to one of her direct reports. And that's what got me to Meta as director of organizational effectiveness for tech. Did that for 2.5 years. And during this time, I started really studying what was going on in the tech space and figuring out like what I wanted to do to bring that to Africa. And I realized that, yes, I actually need to have faith, and I need to have faith that stepping into the entrepreneurial space is the right thing for me, and I can do a good job as an entrepreneur, and I can do great things for Africa. So that brings me to my final slide in terms of, and I have some other slides that I'll share with you based on your questions, potentially answers to your questions. Then I started really understanding that I needed to build a faith stronger than my fear. And I've been cultivating that for a little over a year. And May 17th, 2024, I reached that stage where my faith was stronger than my fear. And I left Meta, and now I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So I've started a few businesses. I'll tell you about a few of them. The first one is a lot in taxes, because I didn't understand the U.S. tax code. So I studied it, became a qualified tax professional, and co-founded Taylor Tax with my co-founder, Big Al Donnell Jr. For those of you who either follow me on LinkedIn or who may choose to follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see lots of tax tips and lots of posts from Taylor Tax. They call Tailored Refunds. So that's in incubation, but that one is going to be helping people to claim money after, unfortunately, they've lost their homes to tax liens that they were, or liens on their homes because of taxes they were unable to pay. The artificial intelligence was started by my co-future technologies, a gentleman named Greg Saranda, and working with companies to help them to create AI to help these companies to build, focused on building a billion latest technologies so that they can transform their lives and they can help. David, thank you. David, thank you for that opportunity. I just wanted to run through those slides as quickly as possible. I'm going to mute and let you or whoever is going to direct the conversation direct it, and I'm very open to answering whatever questions I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Terrence. That was really riveting and really enjoyed that. Okay, Michael, Timlin, do you guys want to? I mean, Terrence is great. He wants to have people ask questions. He'd probably like to have a lot of questions, so maybe not, we'll just see how it goes. We'll just manage the time. So, Michael, can you handle that? You and Timlin handle that for us?
Yeah, I think Precious, hand is up, so maybe you can go ahead and ask your question. Precious, you are muted. Can you?
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So my question, your experience and what you have already shared, actually say that each stage actually led you to another stage in trying to my question is this: at the first place, you made mention that you studied economics in I've forgotten the name of the university that you made mention of. But I just want to ask, was that the course you actually had a have passion to study, or did you um that is what is available for you? So that's my first question.
Thank you, Precious. That's such a great question. So, when I got to Brown, what I wanted to study was psychology because I was quite people behaved. My dad recording going again.
We want the recording to start. We want everybody who listens afterward.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Okay. So, principles. Yeah, so please repeat the question. Go ahead.
So what are some principles that you able to apply in your life to help you apply it in your life, your self-belief?
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay, I'm echoing in my ear, so hopefully I'm not echoing on the recording. So principles that I've learned to apply in my life for belief, first of all, is that we are powerful beyond measure. And once we understand and accept that spiritually, it allows us to get in touch with that higher sense of who we are and what we can be. So that's one. Second is failure is not something to be afraid of. Starting something new or something difficult does require a journey of learning and growth. And as long as I stick to it, I'll become the best version of myself in that particular space or arena. And then third is not to take myself so damn seriously. The reality is all of us are blessed beyond measure, regardless of what religion you may subscribe to, right? David has heard me share this. I believe in the ancestors. I believe in God. I believe in the universe, and I believe in the universal creative mind. And all four have me feeling more in touch with what is possible, but also realizing that it's not about me. So no matter how intelligent I may hold myself, oftentimes things are coming through me as a vessel. And I just need to be humble enough to understand that it's through grace that many things are happening to me and through me and in my life. So those would be principles I would share, Michael.
Awesome. Next question.
Good day, everybody.
Go ahead with your question, Echo.
All right. So my question is, during the time he was in school, was there any time he was confused that, or probably doing something he felt was just following the crowd? Okay, let's say it wasn't like the high school, and he came out of high school and with the focus purpose that, okay, when I'm out of high school, this is my goal. I'm going to study in the university, and then after that, he followed that passion and then got to where he's going. Did that actually lead him to where he is now? Or after high school, he stumbled into something else, and then along the way, he stumbled into something else, and then along those processes, he came to know what he needed in life, and then he's where he is today because he discovered those things during the process, but not from high school. Because I don't know if you understand me. Because for me, I'm asking that question because of myself. In high school, honestly, I didn't really know what to do. I just said, well, I'm in high school, well, let's just go through school. After that, I came out and I had passion to do computer. And then my parents could not afford that. I had to now learn a mini job, which was not really what I loved doing. But along the line, I loved doing it because I started earning money from it. Then after a particular period of time, I was shifted from that area. And then I was now having passion to doing something different. So it has been like that in my life cycle. So at a particular spot, I do something because of probably I need money, but not really passionate about what I do. And at some point, I get drafted and I have to do something else. I'm just up and down, up and down, up and down. I'm not just firm in saying, I want to do this and I'm focused and I'm doing it. Currently now, I'm actually taking a course at the Skep Foundation, studying UI, UX. Why? I did that because I hear people say, okay, why, man? The country is hard, but if you're in UX design, you can earn more money, be able to help you sort out your needs and the rest. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that would be a better field to go into. But now I'm actually studying it. I'm saying that, wow, it's really hectic for me to really diagnose everything in my head. So I'm kind of trying to be honest and ask now, so how can I do that? How did he really do it?
Wow. Hey, Jerome, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think I've walked a similar path, right? So in high school, I certainly didn't know that I was going to be here as an entrepreneur after the age of 53. I didn't know that I would be starting. Yeah, you look confused. I am 53, my brother. I'm sorry to say. Right? I didn't know I was going I didn't know I was going to I didn't know I was going to be starting the African Institute of Future Technologies and striving to build 1 billion African tech savvy entrepreneurs. I didn't know I was going to become the executive chairman of AAAI, African Academy of Artificial Intelligence. So in many ways, what your journey was my journey around that time. In high school, I was pretty much learning a lot about myself, but learning a lot about the world, right? So like everyone else, I also had situations where I was highly influenceable by what my friends were doing, what my friends were up to. I think the one difference for me personally was because since I wasn't born in the US, it became very clear to me that I needed to, well, not even needed, that I wanted to do something very related to Africa. So that was the golden thread for me. Have to do something related to Africa. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so starting to believe in myself came a little bit later, once I realized that, okay, I'm at a stage in life where I can, based on all the experiences I've had, do something meaningful for the continent. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question, Jerome.
Okay. So it simply means you at some point you decided to say, okay, instead of just doing anything, but I should do something that would add impact to everyone, not just myself, right?
Yes. So I always knew I wanted to do something related to Africa. The earliest vision I guess I had was my best friend growing up was a gentleman named Arden Phillips, and his father used to work for the Inter-American Development Bank. And his father was really cool, like one of those people that I looked up to. So I thought to myself, it would be great to one day perhaps work for the African Development Bank and do something to help African countries develop. And then the more I got into work and the more I got into living life, I realized that that path wasn't necessarily for me.
Okay, so I have one last question. Now, I've just explained my life circumstances or life journey. So what advice can you give to me following what I just explained about my circumstances and how I'm going? Yes. Yeah, so I would say I'm not really stable, I'm confused, and at the same time, just looking for a job I can do or a skill I can learn because I want to earn much more to sustain. So what kind of advice can you give to me? Because whatever you're going to tell me, trust me, it's going to be what I'm going to take, I'm going to think of and see how best I can work on it. So I'm confused, and I just need, I think, a professional advice from you.
Well, first of all, I'm humble that you're asking for my advice. Second of all, I would say based on what I now understand, I would go a bit more spiritual. I would say think about what you actually want to do. I know right now you're not clear, but I think part of it is because you're also figuring out like what can I make money from, like, you know, those types of things. I would think much more about what is it that I really, really want to do. And then once I've figured that out, then I will have the faith that I will figure out how to make a living out of it. Why? Because I'm sure, like me, there are messages and thoughts that keep occurring to you about what you should do. But most likely, when those messages come, they clash with the reality of, oh, but I need to make money. Oh, but I need to do this, right? So obviously, you can learn skills that allow you to pay the bills, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with learning skills that allow you to pay the bills and having jobs that allow you to earn money. But ultimately, the fulfillment is going to come when you're able to take that thing that you most likely feel spiritually you were sent here to do and find a way to monetize it. So that's what I would say is listen to that voice and those voices that are telling you that this is what you were put here to do, and then have the faith and believe in yourself that you'll be able to find a way to make a living out of it.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.
So
What
we
other
have
questions?
patient Gonto. After patient Gonto, Stephen Lebio we ask his questions, and Elder Columbus we ask.
Okay, can I go ahead now? Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. I want to say thank you very much for your presentation. Your life history resonates with a lot of us in Africa, you know, growing up. But my question is this: one, now that you've made up your mind to give back to Africa or to help, the company, your tech company, is it located in Africa or in the West? Then two, are you still on becoming, like trying to get to the point where you can really support Africa? If yes, what are the strategies that you've put in place to support the young ones? Just like our brother just said now, most of the one, mostly in secondary school, most especially public schools, are really, really confused about a lot of things, even those in the university. Where I had a situation where when I finished my first degree and I wanted to do my master's, I went to UK and I don't know what happened, but I graduated and came back, like part of being confused. We, not just those in the elementary, secondary, even beyond that, we really need guidance focus. Yes, we get these talks in our churches, in our religious body, but do we really, really give attention to it? No, because of the other family issues that are like thorns around us or peer groups. So at this point, as I said, would you say you're ready? You can really, really function in Africa and really support the African youth? And what are your strategies?
Okay, thanks, Patience. I think there may be 3 or 4 questions, so I'm going to do my best to answer them. If I miss any aspect of the question, please let me know. First one is the location of the company. So AAAI is located in Africa. It was started, as I shared with you, by a gentleman named Greg Sorandos, who's my co-founder in the African Institute of Future Technology. So it's based out of Johannesburg. The African Institute of Future Technologies is an idea whose time has come, and we're founding the company both in Africa, but also we're going to have a company in the US. And this is because the mission and the vision that we have to build 1 billion African tech-savvy entrepreneurs is going to require bridging Silicon Valley and Africa. So for the people who are in Silicon Valley to partner with us, they're going to need to see a US leg. And some of the people that we're going to be approaching also potentially for funding or investments need to see a US leg. But it is going to be a company that's based in Africa. It is going to be a company that's focused on Africa. Am I ready for Africa? Is Africa ready for me? Because I've lived most of my life between 2 places, Africa and the US. So as I share, up to the age of 9, I was very much in Africa, growing up in Sierra Leone, Freetown, Waterloo, right? In fact, Terry Street, you know, Kissy Road, that area for those who know Freetown very well. So Eastern boy. And then I got to the US, and by the time I was ready to start my professional life at 26, I went international. And then by the time I was ready to do my own thing in 2001, I moved back to the continent. But in this case, I was living in South Africa for 16 years before going back to the US over the past 8.5 years. So I've been going back and forth. I didn't share this, but I teach at the Gordon Institute of Business Science in South Africa and to the MBAs. And I've been teaching an elective for 17 years now called African Business Opportunities and Innovations in Africa. So basically about how do you do business effectively in Africa. I love Africa passionately. I'm an African through and through. I've had the privilege of growing up in the West, but I've never lost my love for my continent. So I'm ready for Africa. I want to give back to Africa. So yes, I want to do everything that is within my power to make sure that the businesses that I build help me to help Africans to experience the deepest dignity and the highest sense of well-being. So that's an overriding purpose for me. And then the question about confusion and the future and how to approach life. As I said, I'm coming at this much more spiritually at the age of 53 than I was when I was younger. When I was younger, I used to think very much about making plans and trying to earn a set amount of money. I shared as part of my 20-minute or so intro into my life that I was afraid to be an entrepreneur because I needed to make 15,000 US a month to take care of family obligations. Now, at this stage of my life, I realize that being an entrepreneur means first of all, extending my definition of family. So before my definition of family was very westernized in the sense that I was worried more about my wife and my kids. And of course, as an African, I have family members who also depend on me. So I wanted to make sure I always had funds to help them. But now my definition of family is the entire African continent. So as I step out into doing these big ventures, I'm looking to do everything in my power to make sure as many Africans as I can help are helped, and as many Africans that I can empower and enable and give economic agency to, I will do so. So if you're at the stage where the confusion is financial, then it might take some stepping back and understanding what options do you really have, right? And if it's more so that the confusion is non-financial, then I would say I would go a much more spiritual way. But if it's financial, then I think there's some specific things that probably require a conversation beyond just an answer to a question or 4 questions, in a presentation to a group of people. Patience, I hope I've covered your questions as best as I can. Did I miss anything?
You have, thank you. But the strategy is the last one. What
The
strategy? What you
Uh-huh.
want to discuss? I don't know. It's up
So-
to you.
Okay, my strategy for what I'm doing now, or advice for strategy
Help
for
you.
people?
No strategy, how you want to impact Africa, help with your tech
Okay,
company.
got it. Yeah, so I'm very clear as so let me wait for the recording to restart. Okay, so starting again, my strategy is 3 to 4-fold. The first one is to start institutions that are Pan-African and that would influence the entire continent and help Africans to experience the deepest sense of dignity and to enjoy the highest sense of well-being. Second is to use the networks that I've been blessed to have to connect those institutions and Africans who are touched by those institutions to the latest technology and the latest and greatest things that we can offer. Third, to ensure that as I'm building these institutions, I'm building them in a way that enables, empowers, and provide economic agency to Africans. And then the final one is to play the role that I can to influence both Africa and the West to always consider that Africa must not get left behind as technology evolves. So let me pause there, Patience, and see if that answers the question that you're asking.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So the next person, Stephen, please go ahead with your question. After Stephen, Elder.
Yeah, Kushel, Mr. Taylor. Yes.
Yeah, Kushel, howdy, buddy.
Yes, nice. Hello, brother. How are you, sir?
I tell God, thank you. How you, Seth, bye?
I do fine. Oh, thank you for sharing with me your incredible life.
Okay.
So, to my question, one made mention of how you struggle first to go to the America to attend, to live with your father and your stepmom, uh, to go to the high school and also the university. So one of my question is, how do you manage to, go through all this stress during your high school and your university days? And also, you are so passionate about technology, but based on all what you have explained to us, I don't know because I'm having a network problem, but I do not hear you saying that you went to any tech or computer science institution, but now you are more passionate about technology. How all that came about? That's my question, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Stephen. Okay, so how did I manage the stress? To be honest, I went through the stress, right? I think the stress defined me. Certainly when I was going through the time with my stepmother, the challenges, I just decided at some point to just put my head down and to prove her wrong, but it was very stressful. I was very unhappy growing up. I went through 2 what I call young life crisis, right? So at the age of 24, I found myself depressed. At the age of 30, I found myself depressed, and I had no choice but to go through those really dark moments to define for myself what success is and define for myself what it is that I want out of life. So that's probably a conversation for another day, but it really helped me to get in touch with what really matters and who I want to be, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is such an astute observation. My background, as you would have heard, is actually finance. And then I moved into human resources and specifically learning and development. Along the way, though, when I did my first real foray into starting up a company, I had this idea back in 2013 when I was working in South Africa for this health insurer called Discovery, that the way we do medical aid, what do I mean by that? Even if you're able to afford medical aid and see a doctor for something that is disturbing you health-wise, most of the time you travel, you get there, even if you have an appointment, you wait, and then the nurse comes and she asks you, and normally it's a woman, a bunch of questions. Maybe she measures your weight, she takes your blood pressure, and then you wait. Then the doctor comes, the doctor looks at what the nurse has written, and then the doctor also then either asks you a bunch of questions or they pick up from where the nurse has left off. By the end of that engagement, you probably spend 5 to 10 minutes if you're lucky with the doctor, and the doctor then writes you a prescription or a script and then sends you off to get that filled if you need one. So I had the idea that there's got to be a better way to do this. And I started understanding that technology could be the way to do it. And if you remember, this was around the time when apps were all coming up and doing all kinds of different things. So I wonder if there's a way to use technology to do a screen to face interaction, and then that technology will be able to diagnose whatever is wrong, especially if it's not something that's acute where you need surgery or anything. And then through technology, because then Uber was coming up, you also would be able to get your prescription filled and delivered to you. So that's what we created. We created something called Leapfrog Africa Healthcare Solutions. We started trying to find a way to make that a reality on the continent. We found out that the law didn't allow it. Like if you had to see a doctor, the law at that stage said that it had to be face-to-face. Now, since COVID, we have telemedicine and we have quite a number of startups that are working in the healthcare space. But that first foray into that idea, and this is why I'm so spiritual these days, I thought I was a smart guy and that I created that idea. Now I realize a little over a decade later that that was being channeled through me. I was just a vessel. And because I didn't overcome my fear and pursue that full time, then it was taken away and other people have been pursuing it, right? So now coming back to why and how did I end up believing so much in technology? After that experience, although I remained in HR, my antenna was up completely for technology. So when I was at Google studying how the technology works. And I was specifically seeking to understand how to create Leapfrog Africa healthcare solutions and technology behind it. And then when I got to Facebook Meta, I continued to study to see how are these companies building these products that are touching billions of lives. So that's why by the time I left, I had a deep understanding of two things. One, artificial intelligence, because I had a chance to work with the Google artificial intelligence team. Second, I had an understanding for how these technologies and how these technology companies create services and products that scale to 1 billion plus users. And finally, Stephen, I ended up taking a product management course for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I'm proud to say that I got a 95% out of 100% in that course. And I'm certified for product management for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Why? Because I realized that when I'm ready to launch my ventures for Africa, when I'm ready to build the institutions for Africa, Pan-African institutions that are technology focused and technology enabled, I needed to really understand how product management works, because that's what allows Google and Facebook stroke Meta to be able to build these services and products that touch billions of lives. So Stephen, I hope I've answered your question.
I think you did.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we got a bunch of questions here, so let's get short questions so Terrence can answer them.
Yeah.
Hello.
Please go ahead with your questions and make it short and straight and direct. The same is applied to others.
Okay, so thank you very much. My name is Robert Metonuno. I joined late, but I think I've properly understood what Brother Terrence has shared. It's very, very, very inspiring. It's very, very inspiring. And I just want to just touch on two things. I mean, that's the purpose why I joined. Can you touch or share, I mean, your ideas, your passion for Africa? I can see that, just like Brother David and the rest. But I want to just talk about investments and partnerships. Investments and partnerships. What are your thoughts on these two specific things? Because that has been one of the biggest problems that Africans we face. We are looking for investors and we are looking for partners. And it's very difficult looking at some of the policies, the conditions, and a whole lot of things, which makes it absolutely difficult for many startups across Africa. You are trying to create something regards with tech, but I don't know how you can marry and help us understand more about investment and partnerships. Can you touch a little bit on that? Your thoughts on that?
Yep. First of all, Robert, thank you very much for that. Yes, I certainly can. My experience tells me that with investments and partnership, it comes down to the R word, relationships. So it's currently a difficult environment for most African startups to raise funding.
Yeah.
And when you go out there and you have a great idea, you may not know the right people who are willing to fund your idea. So the first place I would start is to asking myself, who's in my network who know people who would be interested in investing in this particular venture. Now, when it comes to partnerships, and this maybe goes back to Patience's questions about our strategy for building out the African Institute of Future Technologies, or even AAAI, African Academy of Artificial Intelligence. For both of those ventures, we are very much heavily focused on building the right partnerships. In fact, what I've been pleasantly surprised by is since I left Meta on May 17th, I've traveled, I think this is my 6th or potentially 7th trip to the continent working on partnerships while we lay the groundwork for me and my family to move back and do both of those ventures full time, right? So partnerships are extremely important. And again, it comes down to having the right relationships, but that just gets you into the right conversation. The next thing, of course, is to figure out what actually can you as a partner do to benefit whoever it is you're approaching for the partnership. So I'll give you an example. For AAAI, we had a conversation with a company in South Africa called the Performance Agency. Absolutely fabulous company. They provide consulting services and they're specialists, world-class specialists in change management. Now, this is through a relationship I had forged with the founder of that company, a lady named Natalie Maroon, when I was working at Discovery, and I was the general manager for talent analytics, leadership, and learning. So she came, we brought her in to do a body of work for us. I was blown away by how she approaches things and how good she is. And I kept in mind that if I ever had the opportunity to partner with her, I would want to. So at that stage, AAAI is still at the startup phase. She's built this very successful business. I think like going on 15, well, yeah, probably between 12 to 15 years old, right? So, but in approaching her, we thought through like, well, what can we offer her that would be helpful? And we said to her, we're looking to help institutions to create AI governance and compliance. And we know for a fact that when they do that, they're going to need change management. So what we would love to do is to go to them together to say, we will help you come up with the governance and compliance for AI, and our partners will help you to do the implementation to make sure it sticks. So we now have a strategic partnership with the Performance Agency. So Robert, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that is very helpful. But I will also put in that if there are organizations that are willing to partner some of us in these BYU management societies, I think we should. Personally, I need partners. I need partners with my organizations, and it has been a very difficult thing, specifically in technology.
So Terrence, I mean, Robert, let me jump in here because we're getting out of time. I think hopefully what we're starting with Terrence, and Terrence, you and I can talk more about this, is this relationship with the BYU Management Society. And I think it's honestly amazing the vision that you have. You know, there's a saying, Rome was not built in a day, right? But you know, but you're doing tremendous things already. I mean, your commitment's pretty incredible since May, 6 trips to the continent, right? So that shows a lot of passion and purpose. So hopefully what we can do is, you know, we can continue our relationship. And I think from time to time, have you come back and speak to this group? You know, people have had this first experience with you. We can kind of keep track of the names and everything. And we can continue, and you can kind of come along and give updates to people because there's macro things you can do. We understand you can't have a personal relationship with everybody on this group, but you're doing big things which not only trickle down but stimulate growth. And so, Robert, I think that hopefully that helps a little bit. I think this accelerates a lot of what we're trying to do because Terrence is really operating at a very high level, and I think everybody has felt that today. So anyway, maybe we take one more question and then or two and then wrap up. I think we'll talk more, but I think this has been really powerful.
Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello. Please, my name is Samuel Kofemis. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I would actually appreciate the presentation. I mean, it's wonderful, and also I'm very happy for him having that heart to look back on Africa to help. That's, I mean, one of the greatest things that I heard him say, and I'm happy for that. But what I would need is his LinkedIn profile link, and that's all that I need. I think maybe I could send message 1 or 2 later.
Yeah, Terrence, I noticed you have 3,000 followers. We're hoping to double that very soon, right? So if you can put that in the notes for everybody, and then that when we send out the recording, there will be a recording of this. Mike will send that out along with the slides, and we can include maybe the LinkedIn profile at that time as well, so people can follow along. But
yes,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yes, I'll be happy to put my. Let me put it down. Let me put my LinkedIn.
So as he does this, I want to remind people, we love Terrence, but be respectful of his time. There's only so much he can do.
Yep, I have a question.
Yep, shoot.
Yeah, this is Terrence, great presentation. My question for you is, why did you choose Africa?
That's an easy one. Africa chose me even before I was born. So I have no choice but to answer the call. I feel like the ancestors have been speaking to me for well over a decade that I need to do more. I need to give back more. I've been so blessed with all the experiences I've had, and for some reason I was afraid. So now I'm no longer afraid. So Africa chose me, and I'm just answering the call.
So Terrence, Seth is the regional director for the BYU Management Society in Africa, and he's also coming to BYU this fall because he's working on a PhD program. And so somewhere along the way, we'll see if we can connect more because Seth is very tech friendly. You're very tech friendly. Both of you are committed to building Africa. And so I think this is just, a byproduct of this network relationship that we have.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. We'll connect offline. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So, my question is, in your experience, what are some practical strategies leaders can implement to foster a culture of self-belief within their teams? And how they can measure the impact of these strategies on team performance and individual growth?
Yeah, these are all great questions. So one of the areas that I've had the privilege of working in over 20 plus years is leadership development. And I believe very strongly that leadership is a team sport. And I also believe very much in Mandela's version of leadership, which is he called leading from behind, which the idea is, as a leader, to your question and to begin to answer your question, your duty is to create the platform for others to shine. So to cultivate others and to ensure that others are clear that you intend for them to succeed, as a leader, you've got to think that through to say, like, well, what will it take for me to help others to succeed? One thing we know that is, well, there are a few things that we know to be helpful. So I'll just give you three. Clarity on what their role is, and also in that clarity about the role, clarity about the boundaries, if any, that you're putting around them. Like, so what do they need to come to you for? What can they do on their own, right? The second thing is to coach them for competence when they're starting out. So you show them how to do what it is you need them to do in case they don't know. And once they know, the third thing is to coach them for confidence, right? And I found that when leaders do this, they tend to have people who shine and who fly. I've seen this in my own professional journey when I was at Discovery and I was able to build a team of leaders who took something very difficult as an ask from the CEO, Adrian Gore, and did it so well that he featured the output and the results of what that team did when he reported back to his board of directors in 2015. So, Godwin, I hope that answers the question. I don't know if I've covered it fully, but I hope that helps.
Yes, actually, it has, given me an in-depth understanding of what I was actually looking for. I'm grateful. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
Okay, please.
Wait, Jerome,
Okay.
Jerome, I'm so sorry, Jerome. I've seen Tobias, I see in Sika, and I see Pamela. I don't think they've had a chance yet. So let's give them a chance first. Tobias.
Okay, good afternoon.
Tobias.
My name is
Tobias, you go.
Sika.
Oh, and Sika, you're already on. Okay. Tobias, we'll get you after Nsika. Nsika, you go.
Okay. Thank you very much. I thank the organizers for putting this over. From your story, it seems your success has been actually been determined by your environment compared to those in Africa.
Okay.
So since this webinar is focused on faith, having strong belief in oneself, for some of us, like for me, who have struggled to acquire one or two certificates that will enable me find a job, like the one I got from Coursera, sponsored by Skep Foundation. Since then, I've been struggling getting a job, but I've not found any. And for some people like me, they are beginning to lose hope. They are beginning to lose that faith in themselves. So what advice can you give us?
Okay.
So
it's a great question. I've had the privilege of asking for and having my requests accepted for mentorship from Fred Swaniker. For those who don't know Fred, I'm just going to type his name. You may want to look him up. So if you in Sika are complimentary of what I've been able to achieve because of the environment that I've been exposed to, I think you'll be even more complimentary that Fred Swaniker has achieved so much more, and he's done it from Africa. So I've had the privilege of, being in the States and then going back to the continent and then going back to the States. So he's also had the privilege of studying in the States, but after he finished his studies, he went to Africa and built great institutions like the African Leadership Academy, African Leadership University, ALX, and now he's building SAND Technologies. So African entrepreneur, a mentor. And let me share with you some of the insights I'm beginning to gain from him, which I hope will be helpful. You may be struggling to find a job right now, But let me be provocative. What if the thing that you should be doing is actually figuring out how to create jobs as opposed to get a job? Meaning, what if you should be looking at creating your own company, your own initiative, and figuring out how to monetize that based on what people need and what they're willing to pay for? Because in Fred's case, he's been able to start off as a social entrepreneur with the African Leadership Academy, and he's migrated all the way now to where he's started his own tech company, Sand Technologies, that is growing very rapidly and doing exceptionally well. So I wonder if Fred's experience contrasted to my experience, and maybe my experience and Fred's experience as complementary experiences for you to compare and contrast, may be helpful in how you think about what's possible for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, Tobias, you've been very patient.
Yes, thank you so much, Terrence. And I'm Tobias from Kenya.
Okay.
I just want to have one question.
Yes.
Despite the challenges you faced at a younger age, what will you consider as your most motivation towards your educational journey?
Thank you. Great question. And Jambo, by the way, Tobias. So
Jambo
my wife is my wife is Kenyan. Okay, so part of it, I think I was blessed to have a father that really understood people and really loved people. So even as a young child, he always gave me a chance to express myself, right? So as I was going through these frustrations, eventually my relationship with him became one where we became really, really close friends. And I was very sad to lose him when my firstborn was only 1 year old, because I would have really wanted my children to be exposed to him. So the difficulties were manageable eventually, because once I got in touch with that initial defiance, because I think it was just defiance and stubbornness. Like, you can't tell me that I'm a bastard and I'm never going to be anybody. I am going to be somebody. I'm going to prove you wrong. But that in and of itself was not enough. And then once, it's a long story and I know we don't have time for it, but once my Auntie Maggie, who was very near and dear to my heart, intervened and got my father to understand what my experience was at that time, I think I was 13, then my relationship with my father changed. And that really was a game changer for me. So that really helped me then to manage a lot of the challenges a lot better. Okay, I hope that helped, Tobias.
Thank you for that.
All right. I think, Pamela, you're next.
Hello?
Yeah, Pamela, I think you're next.
All right, thank you. So I'm sorry I would not be able to turn up my camera. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. In response to a previous question you were asked, you mentioned the importance of being connected to your higher purpose. Could you please elaborate on this concept to ensure that I have a clear understanding of it? Thank you.
Yes. So you've heard me mention 4 things: the ancestors, God, the universe, the universal creative mind. I've always had a sense that there was more to my life than I knew, but I never really knew what to make of that sense. And growing up, especially once I left Sierra Leone and moved to the West, then it became more about what science is teaching you, what science is telling you. And in high school, especially, you learn as much as you can through the different classes that or let me speak in the first person. So I learned as much as I could from the different classes that I took. And yet this feeling never left me that there's got to be more. There's got to be more to this than meets the eye. And then the older I got, I started remembering that even as a young child in Sierra Leone, we always said, or it was always said by our elders, that this is not the true world. So when we lose someone, we will say that that person has gone to the true world. So when I started thinking more and going through practices like meditation, and also going through some of my own religious journey to understand God, quite honestly, I shared with David when we first met that I chose to be a Mormon at the age of 16. My father let me become a Mormon, and I was a Mormon for quite some time. And then at some stage I stepped away from the church, but my father just wanted me to have a relationship with God. So I continue to cultivate that relationship through my own limited understanding when I was trying to understand it scientifically. And there were even moments that I doubted, to be quite frank, that there could be a God, given all the things that scientifically were in my head, and it just didn't seem to make sense. But the older I got, the more experiences I went through, the more I came back to this notion that this is not the true world, because there's a spiritual world that we go to after we finish here. So that spiritual world also influences what happens here. And so this is where beliefs in the ancestors, for example, makes a difference, because for many of us who believe in ancestors, we do believe that they can influence what happens to us in this world. So Pamela, it's probably a much deeper conversation, but I want to leave you with this nugget in my journey. I realized that I am at a stage of life where I can profess many things, and if I work and I believe, and that's why I titled this talk The Power of Belief, I can manifest those things. The many things that I have been able to do in my life has been without knowing it, this deep connection to this sense that there's something more, there's something beyond just me, there's something greater than me. And if I'm willing to believe and put in the work, that greater things that I can imagine will happen. So Pamela, I hope that's helpful. That would be what I would have to share.
Hello, Chela.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
think we need to stop.
Please, can I just ask one question, please? A very brief one.
Very brief.
Yes, please. So please, considering your support to Africa, what qualification are we expected to have in order to be able to fit in those spaces? Because one thing is the connection to come, another thing is being prepared for the connection to come, and the last thing is what do you have to hold on to be able to function in those spaces that are vacant? Because if it comes and then probably they need a certificate that I don't have, or the skill that I don't have, then being here would just be a waste, probably. So what qualifications would you require of us to work on stuff to get to be able to function?
At this stage, I require no qualification from you, because the way we're approaching the African Institute of Future Technologies is we want to help people to learn these things, apply these things, and then monetize what they've learned. So it's early stages, but to David's earlier point, like it seems to be an idea whose time has come, and that's why I feel like it's being channeled through me. So the current thinking that we have is come with what you have. If you have a desire to learn, we will teach you. And once you learn, then we'll show you how to apply it. And then once you've applied it, we'll also talk to you about how do you take what you've learned and apply it and monetize it. And more importantly for me, I want to also get into conversations meaningfully about what does it take to be a tech entrepreneur in Africa, this wonderful place that has challenges and opportunities. In French, I say this expression a lot, it's one of my favorite. La vie est belle, la vie est bête. Il faut bien choisir. Life is beautiful, life is ugly. You should choose wisely. So we are given so much. And again, I'm getting spiritual again. We're given so much. It's up to us to see what we choose. So do we choose to see the opportunities we're given, or do we choose to see the challenges that we're given? And if we choose to see challenges, then let's be like Peter Diamandis, who says that your greatest challenge is your greatest opportunity. So if you are helping people to solve a big challenge, and a lot of people to solve a big challenge, you never have to worry about money.
Awesome. All right, Terrence, on behalf of everybody, we thank you. And I want to segue, and then I'll turn it over to Michael and Timlin to wrap up. you know, the BYU Management Society, and I think you and I spoke about this before, but they are starting to host these business plan competitions to encourage entrepreneurship. And their first one, they're having a pilot, and it's the selection process is underway, and a lot of it took place in Nigeria with a few other people invited to attend. Next, and so there will be footage on that. There will be coverage on that. Where you know, the people will be able to see, well, who was selected to be finalists. You know, what is their project? What are they doing? What problem are they solving? They're going to have a much larger one January of next year that's going to be much bigger for people to participate in. So the skills that you're talking about, because you're basically saying, don't wait for your destiny to come to you, create your destiny today. And I think that's really powerful. And you're not trying to script anybody any one way to do it other than find your passion and learn and take advantage of the technology, because if you don't know technology, you will be left behind. And so I think your message is powerful. I think it resonates where the Management Society is going. We will talk more with Terrence, and when we can, we'll get him back in front of the group. You can follow him on LinkedIn as he goes forward. And we thank everybody for being with us today because the time has come. And so that's awesome. Okay, so can we give Terrence a round of applause? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, and each and every one of us who have attended today's webinar. Webinar in BYU Management Society and Skeps are one of the ways we present our people to qualified persons who can be able to share with them the knowledge they have gained, that we can be able to make better decisions. Like David Rupert has previously said, he mentioned about our upcoming business competition finalists, which will be coming on 31st of August. Please stay tuned. You will be invited to participate in the final, to watch the final round of the competition. Thank you. We love you very much from our heart, and we wish to serve you all better. And please stay tuned with us. To each and every, we have a culture before we end every webinar. We give ourselves a wonderful hug. Please turn on your camera so we can be able to give both the presenter and ourselves a wonderful hug.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day. Terrence, travel safe. And when you're ready, let's talk again.
Okay, for sure. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time and the engagement.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.